the WNBA and all of their infinite wokeness of social injustice and systematic racism wore shirts that said Jacob Blake, and they had blood and bullet holes on these shirts. I mean, yeah, when you're a fucking predator and a convicted fucking felon that has warrants out, that resisted arrest and tries to reach into your vehicle to grab a deadly weapon to assault the police, you're going to get fucking lit up every fucking time. Every time. But you bitches and all these other motherfuckers hinge your whole ideology on a piece of shit named George Floyd, who most likely died of fucking fentanyl. Did Derek Chauvin should have held his fucking knee to his neck? No. Should George have resisted? No. Should George have been fucking hyped up on fentanyl and illegal drugs? No. Play stupid game, you win stupid prizes. Same with Jacob Blake. We're 8 months into 2020, and those are the two people that you want to base your inequality and racial injustice and systematic racism off of? Nah. Fuck you. Fuck the NBA. Fuck the MLB. Fuck the NHL. Fuck all you motherfuckers, because when people are killed by illegal immigrants, when our military get fucking murdered overseas, when police are fucking paralyzed or killed, you motherfuckers don't postpone shit. You don't sit out games. You don't do any of this fucking shit, you fucking faggots. And we're tired of it. We're really fucking tired of it. Like I said before, these fuckers that you're pandering and catering to, these little fucking felons, they're not buying your shit. They're not fucking getting season passes. They're not fucking watching your games. They can't even fucking afford your games. But you want to isolate and alienate almost half this fucking country, more than half this country, of people that actually care about their country, law enforcement and military veterans. You ungrateful motherfuckers. Every one of you should be sent to fucking China or Iraq or Iran, and then bump your gums and see what the fuck happens to you when you get stoned to death in the middle of the fucking street, or lashed, or raped, or fucking murdered, or thrown off a building for your beliefs. You should be grateful you live in this fucking country, you fucking ungrateful pieces of shit. So next time you want to put on a fucking Jacob Blake shirt, I hope it has little children all over it with semen stains all over it, because that's the type of motherfucker that you represent.
Oh my God. So strong. Hello, Erika. How are you?
Hello.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you again. Erika, thank you for being here for the third Epic Understanding episode. So do you want to explain to people who are watching us what is the aim of this Epic Understanding conversation?
You know what? It is exactly that. It is to help people understand. Epic Understanding actually started as a simple hashtag where we began discussing all the change that was going on in our nation, and taking opinion polls and taking surveys. And then our audience decided they wanted more. They want more. They want to go deeper. And so this show was developed, and you and I answered the call.
Perfect. So I guess we have more videos to watch. Let's go.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Let's go then.
Sports and activism are woven into the American experience. Oftentimes, sports has been the leader when it comes to social change and when it comes to societal change.
What sports often does is it provides a spotlight to issues that are often being discussed in smaller communities, often hidden away without media coverage. When athletes become involved, it becomes hard to ignore the larger social issues.
Robinson is now more than a ball player. He is, by circumstance, a representative of his race.
Bill Russell, the man, is someone who stood up for the rights and dignity of all men. When a restaurant refused to serve the black Celtics, he refused to play in the scheduled game.
Because sports gives us as close to a meritocracy as we can think of in this society, it often can be a leader in terms of changing how we in society view one another. In this political climate that we're in, it's become more important for athletes to be activists today. I think they see the danger of what happens when the people who have been blessed with the most, when they become disinterested in the everyday struggle.
The t-shirts and whoever came up with that idea, it is striking with the 7 bullet holes. Jacob Blake shot 7 times in the back.
Well, and the plan coming into tonight was for teams to kneel during the national anthem. And that was the original plan. But obviously, after conversations, emotions, different things happening.
It's all something. You know what? When you take it all in at once like this, it's overwhelming. At the same time, we have to talk about it. But before we get too far down the line, I want to welcome everybody. I want to welcome Facebook and LinkedIn and Paraquad. Welcome Jamaica, Portugal. Yes. I want to welcome you. Please, join us, share your feedback and your comments, put in hashtag Team Live, Team Replay, and then, give us your feedback. Don't let us get away with anything. Tell us when we get it right, and we want to hear your voice, and definitely tell us when we're getting it wrong.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have some special guests for you. First, I want to bring up Dr. Jen Welter, author and first female coach in the NFL, and Madden. Welcome, Dr. Jen. I should really also add, before I forget, Dr. Jen was the first female running back. You know what? I just got to give a round of applause for that in itself, because it takes something to do that. And then next up, we have Mike Yates, noted TEDx speaker and host of School Sucks. Welcome. Does it suck, Mike? Does school really suck?
It does, yes.
No, it does.
Not my
maybe
school.
There you go. Maybe school sucks, but learning doesn't. How about that?
Right.
There you go. All right. Next up, we have Jerry Foxhoven, human rights expert and former Iowa State Human Services Director.
I think he has no image.
Jerry? He'll work it out.
No, I'm on here. Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
can.
Hear you. We can't see you. We can't see you, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. We have Jennifer Cobb, alumni NFL cheerleader and director and founder of Team Gateway to a Cure.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited. And we have 2 Jens in the house.
You know what? Double Jen, double trouble, double the fun.
Double the fun, absolutely.
There we go. And then we have top diversity and inclusion consultant for Fortune 500 companies and Chief Field Communications Officer for SGI, Tony Alexander. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing? I'm just curious, how did those first few videos impact you? Mike, I'm going to go to you. How did those first few videos impact you?
Yeah, it's interesting to watch that because when I saw what the NBA did and when I saw what the WNBA did, I said, "Oh, this is great. This is phenomenal." But there are people like that exist in the world. Like I am, especially I'm talking about the first one. I'm from Texas, so so racism is just a part of growing up here. It's just a part of the experience, and so you encounter those voices and those sorts of opinions. But it still feels raw, and it still feels very strange to see it on the internet. But we live in the age of social media where everybody has a platform and everybody has access to one of these, with the camera. And so, I am thankful for what has happened in the NBA and in the WNBA, and with sports in general, right? Like, the Madden, EA Sports in Madden, they just put Kaepernick back in the game, right? Like, even the little things like that, I'm happy to see things like that. Dr. Walter is in the game as well, right? Like, seeing the things that didn't exist before, seeing the progress. I think that we get caught up in wanting to arrive. Like, we want this problem to end. We want racial inequity or gender inequality to end so badly that we don't stop and say, "Oh, look at that. That's really good. We're moving in the right direction." And I think that's what's happening, right? Like, the NBA didn't solve anything, but they boycotted games. They have these powerful phrases in the back of their jersey. You have these black men and these black women in the WNBA that are saying, "Our body is how you have gained entertainment from us, and we will, if we have to, withhold that so that we can stand up for our brothers and sisters." So I think obviously the first video is misguided, but it strikes a chord with me because I really like what's going on in the world of sports right now.
Wow. I just want to hover over that because you said our body is what we use for entertainment, and we are going to withhold that. That was just such a powerful comment. Dr. Jen, I'm curious, what might you have said to our friend from Liberty and Freedom if he was right there in front of your face, talking about the WNBA?
Oh, you mean the first guy?
Oh, yeah.
See, if we were social distancing and in COVID and he was in front of my face, I think I would have reverted to my tackling self.
Okay.
Long before my coaching self. I don't have a lot of patience for that and have been around it for too long. But for me, having been the one of one and found my acceptance as a minority, people could have judged me, thrown me out, never even listened to a word. And the people who embraced me the most were those who loved that I was different. So I don't have a lot of patience for someone who doesn't realize the full worth of any individual. I don't. And I understand that everybody has a voice. But at the same time, it's so misguided to me that it's painful, because what the WNBA did, what the NBA did, that represents the very best of humanity to me. Because what strength is using your strength to support and defend others. And he wants to throw the military in there. Well, my dad is a highly decorated Vietnam veteran, and he fought for freedom. And what they did was express freedom. And what they did is, their power to change our culture in what is their strength, right? So the military go and fight for freedom. Well, what they did was say, I'm going to use what is obviously the best asset, or what I'm best known for, in order to create societal change. So you making it seem like it's so far from what the military is insulting to soldiers, and it's insulting to those athletes, because ultimately, from what I know of both the military and athletes, is the respect for each other is so high. The love and respect for, the heroes in all ways of which we can help and support others, right? It's using that. So I hate that divisiveness that he somehow seems to think that he speaks for, because I disagree to the core of my being. And I really do believe, that sport has the power to demonstrate what our societies can be, right? It is a meritocracy. We go out and, football at its core, at its foundation, doesn't work if we all look the same, right? It requires everything from straight hustle to straight muscle working together to create change, right? To come to a common goal. And so we become a family that appreciates difference. And these athletes are taking what they see as their strength in society and a point of leverage, and putting it on the line for the good of others. So if he doesn't want to watch, then don't watch. That's your choice. But you saying that you have a right to determine what these people choose to do just simply because they're a player, that's not all right. And some of the greatest people in terms of influencing culture have done so through their platforms. In sports, it's the platform through which these athletes move.
Wow, that's very powerful. Tony, I'm going to give you a challenge, because you are Mr. Diversity and Inclusion, okay? And we have to bring people along. And quite honestly, I don't think that he is, far-fetched in his thinking, where there are, where we can say, oh, nobody feels that way. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think they feel as if something was taken from them, or how dare you use something that I love and something that I bought season tickets for to, protest. I don't want to protest. I want to watch basketball. So how, Tony, how would you bring this, valued individual along? How would you bring him along?
Well, I have to admit it would be a little difficult to bring him along, but trust me, I will get him there. One of the things I definitely say is hate breeds hate, and that's unfortunate to have to say in 2020. And just listening to him, I'm from Texas as well. And I grew up listening and hearing the same thing, right? So you were then taught to avoid those conversations or avoid those different or difficult things. But for this particular individual, the education piece is so important. And we hear a lot, and I think society has taught us that we own athletes, right? Because we buy their jerseys, we do, but we don't. We don't. And so when we get rid of this complacency, as well as the fact of understanding that it's a game, and I think they say it better, the love of the game. No one took anything from you. Think about the 400 years of things that were taken from us, and you compare that to what's happening now. In addition, and I'm going to piggyback, military. I spent 10 years in the military, and it was about camaraderie. It was about sacrifices. I'll go even one further. My brother lost his life for this country on April 3rd, 2004. Oh, yeah. So, I'm sorry. Yeah, but for me to be still here advocating, and to hear someone such as the gentleman on the front talking about what the military did, and this is so different. For me, it's not different. We're just living it every single moment. And I believe on the last show, we talked about the difference of having technology people will expose themselves. So, having these platforms and jumping out there and not being educated, it's going to only alienate themselves. And I don't think this is something that just happened. This is something that has been brewing, and we all know, for a very long time. So, as Mike said, I'm excited to see this happen, but we're going to also have to know there's some people that are not going to make it along the journey with us, and we have to be okay with that. We just have to be okay with that. So, I'm a feeler, as they say. One of my love languages is quality time. I can be in a room with you for 5 seconds and say, you're not going to make it, right? And have to understand how to separate and how to move, because our goal is to educate the masses and not the classes. So whatever class that he was brought up in, then hate was brought in with that. So you stay over here. My team and I, we're going to be here, and we're going to push forward. So I guess to sum it up, it would be that individual. If I could bring him along, it's up to him to be receptive to what is happening. But for him to think that this is just about sports and a t-shirt, that's ignorance.
Wow. Wow. Wait a minute. That has to be hashtag. No, say it again, Tony. Say it again.
Which one?
Mass. Oh, here we go. Educate the masses and not the classes. So hashtag educate the masses, not the classes. I love that. That's just wonderful. You know what? Facebook, LinkedIn, let us know what's on your mind. Let us know what you are, what you're thinking. And what would you say to this gentleman if you were in a one-on-one with him? Jen, I want to get your feedback on this matter because you are all about caring. You are all about uplifting people. I mean, that is what you do over there in your organization. You're the founder of Team Gateway to a Cure. And so I'm sure you run into people who are just, I don't know, filled with dysfunction in regards to what it takes for a caregiver to sacrifice and care for their family. Now, why am I bringing this up in relation to this gentleman? Because he's broken. For me, he appears to be broken and dissatisfied almost in the same way that a young child is because they don't understand. They don't have the knowledge. So,
Yeah, and
Jennifer,
yeah, and I can also speak on behalf of my experience with the NFL. And oftentimes, people look at NFL cheerleaders that were on the sidelines and were, you know, doing dances. We look pretty. We're in a uniform, and we're, part of the game and part of the team, and there to embrace the excitement. But behind the scenes, in terms of the selective process, it goes along with what the players actually have to go through and also the cheerleaders. The selective process is so involved. It's more than just the fastest, who's got the fastest 40-yard dash and who can catch the most footballs, and who's the quickest quarterback and has the tenacity and the strength on the field, and the numbers and the stats.
Could surveillance videos bring down the big blue wall of silence, the code infamous for protecting abusive police? All over the country, it seems like the criminals they're supposed to catch, police officers themselves are now getting caught on camera more and more. The remarkable dumping to the ground of this wheelchair-bound paraplegic by airport police who wanted to search him. Or the police officer, while interrogating a woman arrested for drunk driving, who switched the camera off. Once it's turned back on, the previously unharmed woman was now lying in a pool of blood, the cop later claiming she slipped and fell. And now, watch as a police patrol car camera takes us inside the code of silence. It's early one morning in 2004. A car weaves down a Kentucky road. Suspecting a drunk driver, Officer Adam Brown pulls him over.
Sir, what's going on tonight?
But suddenly this routine traffic stop becomes a morality play.
Mr. Crank, where you work for? Newport PD?
In fact, he's Sergeant Mark Crank, a fellow cop from a nearby police department.
Mr. Crank, how much have you had to drink tonight, sir? A couple. Okay.
Crank is slurring his words, and according to Officer Brown, he reeks of alcohol. Yet he seems to appeal for a break.
Talk to me now. What would you like me to say?
Oh, come on now. We're cops now. What?
Officer Brown then steps back to talk privately to his backup.
And you know what? Quite frankly, I really don't care that he's a cop. He was going to kill somebody or kill himself.
Still undecided about what to do, Officer Brown calls his supervisor to the scene.
Hey, I recognize you. Why are you putting us in this position? I prefer not to. Yeah, but you did. And that's what's got me pissed.
Protecting your own is not some hypothetical. It's real and dangerous for those who break the code. You can hear it in the voice of Officer Brown and his supervisor as they discuss the implications of arresting a fellow policeman.
You're right. It's a catch-22, and it would stir up a hornet's nest.
Whatever you want to do, I'm going to support it. What we should do is the right thing to do, the moral thing to do is treat it the same as any other DUI.
The supervisor departs, leaving the final decision up to Officer Brown alone.
You have put me in a horrible situation tonight, one that I pray that you never find yourself in. I am faced with a moral dilemma.
I've been in that position.
Okay. What would you do? Honestly.
I was in that position.
Yes, sir.
I would make sure that that officer had a way home.
Okay. So you feel like we should allow you to break the law and get away with it? Why? Because you're another officer?
I am. Can you hear me okay? I'm back. For some reason, I got cut off again. Well, here's what I would Okay. Yes. Sure. Yes, it's fair. I mean, number one, we're not asking necessarily even to always snitch. We're asking them to stop it when it's happening and to step up. That's what we tell our kids to do. We tell our kids it's not okay just to join all the other kids that are doing something bad. You need to suck it up and step up and say, hey, this isn't right. We can't do it. And we don't know when this stuff happens, how often it would have stopped if just one of the officers would have said, you know what, this isn't right. We need to stop this. So first of all, it is fair, and it is not unreasonable to expect it. Secondly, here's the kind of the important part of it is that the good police officers who do deserve our respect, they don't want that to happen, and they shouldn't want that to happen, and they are part of it. They are part of it if there's a conspiracy of silence. So if they're going to sit back and say nothing when other officers shoot somebody in the back 7 times for no reason, then they will be held accountable for it, for all of the bad apples as well, when they aren't willing to step up and say this was wrong. It doesn't take much to step up and say that's wrong. The last thing I'll say about it is this: before we get to feeling too sorry for them, nobody felt sorry for Colin Kaepernick, who did everything because he stood up and deserved. It's only working now because whole teams are stepping up. I won't say nobody, but a lot of people didn't feel sorry for him, and he threw everything away because he said this isn't right. And so expecting the same kind of character from police officers is not unreasonable. The last thing I'll say, Erika, is this: police officers chose to be a police officer. They chose to put their uniform on, and that means they took an oath to do the right thing, to stand up and tell the truth, and to stop it when something is wrong. The people that we're talking about that are suffering from them, they can't go home and take their uniform off at night. They go home and they're still black. And so I just want to say that if a police officer feels that they can't step up and say this is wrong, they can't step up and tell the truth and say it's wrong, then they shouldn't be a police officer. Then they should do what some of the leadership in Rochester is doing and step down.
one thing, I haven't crashed a car.
But Officer Brown is still struggling with the consequences of letting him go.
First of all, you're on tape right now. Every bit of this is recorded. You have any idea what would happen if this tape got into the media or got out in the public? You have any idea what would happen? I'd lose my job. My job would be history, gone.
And in the end, Brown confides to his fellow officer he can't bring himself to make the arrest.
I can't do it. If I do this, if I hook his ass, I can kiss my career goodbye. I can kiss my job goodbye. I've got 3 kids at home.
So after almost 50 minutes of agonizing, Officer Brown upheld the code of silence, even though he knew he was breaking state law. He let his fellow officer go, allowing the drunk driver's supervisor to drive him home. Sergeant Crank does eventually get a slap on the wrist, a few days suspension without pay. But
actors not to snitch on each other. But is that culture changing among police in Baltimore after some high-profile incidents? WJZ investigator Mike Helgren is live at City Police headquarters with a deeper look tonight. Mike?
Denise, with the release of that DOJ report this week is set to be a monumental one for city police. Here yesterday, the commissioner praised two officers whose testimony led to the conviction of one of their own. But that's not always the case. The blue wall of silence. It's the unspoken code among police officers that you don't rat out fellow officers. Policing expert Doug Ward with Johns Hopkins University.
This code of silence has been going on as long as there's been multiple police officers on the same organization.
In one of the rare times it's been exposed in Baltimore, former officer Joe Crystal found a rat on his car after telling prosecutors he witnessed fellow officers assault a suspect. He claimed he couldn't get back up and that the commissioner at the time failed to shield him from retaliation.
I didn't become a cop to, beat somebody or to get street justice. I became a cop to, do my job and do real justice.
It's not just Baltimore. In Chicago, the mayor cited the code and the fallout after the police shooting of teenager Laquan McDonald.
It's a code of silence. It is a tendency in some cases to cover up the bad actions of a colleague.
You don't rat on fellow police officers, or else that's the end of your career, could be the end of your life.
So has the culture changed? At a press conference Monday, Commissioner Kevin Davis praised two officers for testifying after a fellow officer assaulted an unarmed man, leading to his conviction.
Reporting misconduct, now absolutely required by our new use of force policy, is something our community has a right to expect from all police officers in Baltimore.
When you find the good things and the officers do the right thing, you have to do that praise.
Ward says breaking the blue wall of silence means setting an example at the top and firing people who aren't complying, but concedes it's hard.
It's one of the most difficult things because it tends to perpetuate itself, that culture of how we do it here. I don't care what they taught you in the academy. This is how we do it at this precinct. That's what happens. But it changes, and it changes over time.
In September of 2014, Baltimore City Police put in place this whistleblower protection policy that prohibits retaliation against officers who report other officers. Denise?
All right, thank you, Mike. Now, according to the
Now to more on an Eyewitness News investigation, the alleged sheriff's deputy gang that has branded its members the Executioners. Today, city leaders in Compton say they're fed up. They're calling for a federal investigation. And as Carlos Granda reports, the mayor of Compton herself is speaking out about her own harrowing experience.
They terrorize the community and then they cover their tracks. It is unacceptable.
Is the Compton Sheriff Station being run by the Executioners, a gang of rogue deputies with matching tattoos? Sheriff Alex Villanueva denied it last week, but today Compton's own mayor, Asia Brown, shared her own experience being pulled over by Compton deputies in June of last year.
And I rolled the window down and asked, why was I being pulled over? Within seconds, almost 7 to 9 vehicles descended upon the scene. They ordered me out of my vehicle and they asked me to put my hands on top of the police vehicle so they can search me as if I were a criminal. Mind you, I was accompanied by my husband and my infant daughter in the back seat. I do not look like someone that is trafficking drugs in my family vehicle.
Her baby crying, her husband and car searched for drugs. Asia Brown says deputies let her go after they realized she is the mayor. But even after filing a complaint, Mayor Brown says she's received no satisfactory answers from the sheriff's department.
It's unacceptable. We will send a clear message to the LA County Sheriff's Department that you clean your house, you get your house in order, or we will surely help you do that. You have executioners, you have gangs in your own house.
News of the Executioners came to light last week in a claim filed by Compton deputy Art Gonzalez. He says executioner deputies at the Compton Patrol Station celebrate shootings with tattoo parties, set illegal arrest quotas, and retaliated when he tried to blow the whistle. Compton community members say that sadly this is nothing new. Derek Cooper was arrested by Compton deputies last fall in front of the kids he leads in a youth academy.
I don't even know what I'm being arrested for. I was shipped in a bus down to, the county jail. I was so humiliated to be locked in a shower butt naked with over 200 men waiting to be processed.
Jermel Henderson, a successful restaurant owner and new father, pulled over at gunpoint and detained last month by a Compton sheriff's deputy.
She hopped out the car very aggressive with her gun drawn, like for no reason. I asked her why she was doing that. She said, "Oh, this is what we do in Compton," and it's horrible. It's horrible.
But time may be up for Compton deputies. City leaders say they're calling for a federal and state civil rights investigation, and they're exploring options to terminate their contract for law enforcement with the sheriff's department.
We demand justice from the Compton Sheriffs, and we will no longer continue to pay you $22 million and up to terrorize this community.
I'm Carlos Granda, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
The LA County Sheriff's Department released a statement saying, part quote, "We are aware of the allegations regarding Compton Station and have launched multiple investigations." Early on, the sheriff invited the FBI to conduct their own investigation, and information is actively being shared with them. Hello, I'm Mark Brown.
How did they come up with this number of 6 feet? I think they just pulled it out of their rear ends.
70 Michigan people have died so far this year from COVID-19.
Have peace with one another and fight peacefully and prove how we can have rights like that.
Close enough. All right, good.
Oh, yay.
Take it. Hey, give me an 8.
Here.
Hey, bro. Hey, bro.
You're welcome to open carry. That's totally fine. We're open carry state. But you just can't open carry while you're protesting.
Right at the time. We're just using the first and the second simultaneously.
Well, but see that's the problem in North Carolina.
So any law against the Constitution is null and void. So their North Carolina law really don't mean a whole lot because it's against the Constitution. There's nowhere in the Constitution that you can only use one right at a time.
No, constitutionally, what's the issue?
He just happens to be hanging
So
outside.
what about shall not be infringed? You do not understand.
We're only talking about the state laws here.
I don't give a damn about your state laws.
Yeah, it's Constitution,
All right. That's fine. Hey, if that's how you feel.
You swore no to the Constitution. Are you going to uphold it?
That's how you feel. All
That
right?
is how I feel.
All right. No problem at all.
Not just
All
me.
right?
Millions of us.
Okay. No problem at all.
Trying to get some clarification.
All right. That's all we're trying to do is to clarify.
This is my neighborhood. If you're from this neighborhood and you're trying to help me protect my neighborhood, then take off your masks. Let me see who you are.
I mean, you want to shake hands? You want to have a dialogue, or are you just going to yell at us?
I was less intimidated or more intimidated by the damn Hawaiian shirt, man. That for me is like, yeah, that guy came to party. He's having too much fun. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we got to dance. Yeah, definitely. We have options. We could be very unpeaceful right now, but we're still choosing to be peaceful. A lot more than 8. Yeah, they didn't have a no gun sign on the window, so we didn't. Not a coincidence we're here 3 days later either. The sidewalks would look like that too. They would have been
Tonight, there's a public outcry in Texas after another deadly police shooting. This weekend, a white police officer shot and killed a black woman inside her own home in Fort Worth. It comes less than 2 weeks after former Dallas police officer Amber Geiger was sentenced to 10 years in prison for killing her unarmed black neighbor. According to recent data compiled by the Washington Post, there have been 75 deadly police shootings in Texas this year. Jonathan Vigliotti now on the events that led to this latest shooting.
Body cam footage released by Fort Worth police showed the officer arriving at the house early Saturday morning and looking inside an open front door. He then canvasses the property, aiming both his flashlight and gun at the windows. When he sees someone standing inside, the officer shouts, then fires his weapon.
Put your hands up! Come here!
A single gunshot. 28-year-old Tatiana Jefferson, who was taking care of her sick mother's home, was pronounced dead at the scene. Police were conducting a welfare check, initially called to the home by a neighbor who was worried after seeing the door left open.
And informed them that my neighbor was an elderly, sickly lady, and I was concerned for her health.
But when police arrived, James Smith says they did not use lights or sirens.
3 or 4 tactical officers come from around the corner, seemed like. In less than a minute, I heard a gunshot.
Fort Worth police released a statement saying the officer used his weapon after perceiving a threat.
The officer did not announce that he was a police officer prior to shooting. What the officer observed and why he did not announce police will be addressed as the investigation continues.
Family attorney Lee Merritt said the real threat came from police.
That's murder.
And community members are calling for more answers.
I feel guilty because had I not called the Fort Worth Police Department, my neighbor would still be alive today.
Fort Worth police say the white male officer joined the force last year and is on administrative leave pending an investigation. Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News.
As long as I got my hands up, they're not going to shoot me. This is what I'm thinking. They're not going to shoot me. Wow, was I wrong?
Charles Kinsley now recovering in a Florida hospital after he was shot by police. It's this cell phone video making the rounds that has many questioning North Miami police tactics. Watch as Kinsley laid on the ground with his hands high up in the air. Kinsey, who's a behavioral therapist, says he was trying to help a man with autism who was sitting next to him go back to the group home he wandered from. The man apparently had a toy truck with him. Police in a statement say they were dispatched to the area after getting a call about an armed man threatening suicide.
We have witnessed statements there was a gun. We had a 911 call with that same information. However, I want to make it clear, there was no gun recovered.
Kinsley allegedly yelled to cops not to shoot and that the man was not holding a gun, but a toy truck. But one of the responding officers discharged his weapon, hitting him in the leg.
I'm like, I still got my hands in there. I said, I just got shot. And I'm standing there, I'm like, sir, why did you shoot me? And his words to me, he said, I don't know. It cuffed my head.
The video is shocking. A black family is ordered to the ground, even a 6-year-old girl, and they are terrified. It happened after cops in Aurora, Colorado stopped the SUV believing it had been stolen. Turns out cops were really looking for a motorcycle with the same license plate, but from a different state. The driver, Brittany Gilliam, was with her sister and their daughters, heading for an afternoon at the nail salon when they were pulled over.
It was heartbreaking. And then to hear their screams and their yelling, and it's like, they got me handcuffed, so there's nothing I can do.
A bystander recorded the incident on her cell phone.
They had a gun drawn.
And these kids?
Can I get you guys off the ground?
At one point, an officer helps the girls sit up.
Cuffing everybody, guns on everybody, under these conditions is absolutely excessive force.
Police are now apologizing. I have called the family to apologize and to offer any help we can provide, especially for the children who may have been traumatized by yesterday's events. It's the same police department that is facing condemnation for the death last August of Elijah McClain, the young man who was placed in a chokehold on his way home from a store. He later died in police custody.
Can you hear me? Yeah, yay. I gotta say, I'm gonna go back and refer to the awesome Jen, Dr. Jen here, what she said earlier. Um, it starts from the very early onset, the very beginning, training these officers. I don't know if you're aware of what happens during police academy training, but there is such a surplus of men and women that go into the academy. They come out and they're not equipped, and they're not trained to the capacity of what you just saw. And so again, what's the culture? What are you trying to create? And oftentimes these officers are out there and they're exposed to these situations and they don't know what to do. And you know, it's unfortunate and it's very sad, and there's an inflammatory problem. And I think, being that what we're all going through and the situations that we're exposed to has put this topic of discussion to the forefront for change. And you know, I am so incredibly adamant about this change because it's going to get worse before it gets better. It has to start from the very beginning, like Jen was saying earlier. That culture needs to be established, the consistency continuing throughout. So then these officers, when they are out in these situations, that they have the confidence and they have the team building amongst each other within this atmosphere. And I think if they're unaware and they don't know, then there needs to be feedback. Feedback consists of developing a better culture. And then therefore there's better talent that comes from the workers, and then the workers perform better, and when they perform better they treat each other better, and when they treat each other better, I mean it's just a continuous cycle. And so I think we need to recognize the value in that. And again, it goes back to the leadership and what that looks like. And so revisiting that from the very get-go. And I think, you know, all of us talking about these topics is going to push and persevere the change to happen. You know, one of the things that many of us, in fact, all of us have experienced during quarantine is that deafening silence in our homes. And that is what a caregiver goes through every day of their life, especially if you're a older senior and you're the only one in the home caring for your loved one. There's no doors knocking, bells ringing, phones jingling, and people coming over to say, hey, how you doing? That's their life. And so now insurance companies are recognizing the caregivers as the second patient. They have depression, they have anxiety, they're lonely and financially strapped at times. And so where do they go for their support? Same thing with these officers. When they're not equipped, when they're not educated, when they're not led as from their leaders, their mentors in their environment, where do they go? And so I think it's really important that we consider that in terms of what we're talking about. Right. Yeah. Sure. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And can I add something to that? This is such a great story. That and when my dad, Ty Cobb is his name, and when Ty gets finished with his workout at the YMCA and he's done with his shower and he grabs his bag and he heads out over to the coffee station and maybe a donut or two, the first thing he does is he heads over to that round table where all the fellas are sitting. And you know what they're talking about? They're dude talking. They're sharing each other's stories together. They're trauma bonding. And sometimes my father listens to their stories and what they're going through more than what they do the doctor. I'm not saying that doctors information is important. Yes, it's very important. But there's something that is a common attraction when others are going through the exact same thing. There's a language that we both get. And my dad shares his stories with the other fellas and they're dude talking and they just sit there and they trauma bond and it's the most incredible medicine intellectually and psychologically, and there's no judgment. And my father walks away from that table with a just a different step in his walk, and there's something to be said about that. And so what you just talked about is those officers get each other there, and it's safe. It's safe to talk about and share their stories with each other, because at the end of the day when they go home they feel that confidence of support. And each one of us, make no mistake about it, each one of us have a little bit of leadership inside of us that we can share with each other to help each other get through it. And so what does that look like? Maybe there's a support program that needs to be instilled, that is mandatory, that you are involved with once a week or once, every 2 weeks, as part of the team building criteria. But whatever that looks like, it's got to make it's got to make itself possible so there is a change.
I used a little excessive force, and I slapped somebody when he said something really insulting to me. And after I did that, I realized, wow, I shouldn't have, I had no right to do that. That was not professional. It not only was not professional, it was not human. About a week later, another incident occurred, and I used more force than I needed. After the guy was handcuffed, I grabbed him, I pushed him up against the wall, and I said, don't you dare say that to me again. Do you understand? And I realized this is a disease I'm starting to develop.
The hunt for black people, as he calls it, is part of a racist system that he condemns today. The first thing he denounces is the quota of arrest imposed on U.S. police in many large cities. This race for numbers pushes them to stop black people for no reason.
Quotas lead to arrests for no reason. Minorities have no one to call if they're wrongly arrested. The white person will call their local political committee man or person. They'll call the parents, perhaps, of a teenager, will call the local politician. Yo, what's going on here? My child was arrested just because he didn't have his license. Why don't you just tell him to go home and get his license? And things like, so the white person has more power. Black people have no connection to the people in power. So you know there's not going to be any blowback on arresting a minority because they don't have any power to complain.
And African Americans are not only unjustly arrested, they are not treated with the same respect as white people are.
If you stop somebody from going through a light, you would say, hey, out of your car. Out of your car. Show me ID. You wouldn't say that. To a white person, you would go up and say, may I see your driver's license, please? And blacks know that. Blacks know when you go up and say, hey, out of your car now. And then they say, well, what did I do? Oh, what did I do? Don't say that. Don't ask me why I'm stopping you. I said, get out of the car. And that's right there, you first disrespect. And I saw that happening, and blacks know it's happening. They know it's not happening to white people. So automatically they start resenting the police just from little verbal commands, let alone the physicality of grabbing somebody and putting them in handcuffs while you check their ID. Unfortunately, when I would tell other officers, whoa, that's enough, then they would think, hey, what are you? N for the word. What are you, an N lover?
Since he retired, he campaigns openly against the racist behavior of the police. The former officer has even made a very explicit sign.
I'm asking police, end open season. Stop shooting black men just like they're some kind of animal.
They wouldn't do that with a white?
No.
Why?
They devalue the black man. The black man is, well, let's put it this way. In driving down a street in Philadelphia on a hot Friday night in August, I was with a partner. And of course, hot August night in Philadelphia, a lot of these people don't have air conditioning, and they're outside. So there's a lot of people outside on the steps in the street. And as we're riding down, my partner says, wow, the roaches are out tonight.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is recognizing your own value and what that value can help contribute to fill in the blank, whether you're a part of a team, whether you're a family member, looking at caregiver support and what that looks like in the home. Um, and or whether you're at the workforce inside the work dynamic. A lot of times sports teams will bring on a captain, and the coach kind of leans on that captain to give feedback and to kind of embrace the other team members, the other athletes that are involved, to give them some insight, some value, to talk to them in their language, just like my dad was talking to the gentlemen who are at the same age going through the exact same thing of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever brain disease, ALS, MS, concussions. And there's a common bond there, and you feel safe when you do that. So I'm a firm believer that leadership role within that structure is huge. Especially when you're talking about that age group and that culture. The millennials are very, very philanthropic. They have a big heart. They really do. And every one of us, we have that instilled in us. We have that love and we want to give. And most times when you do give and you lead by example, there's something that happens inside of us and we feel good about that. And there's that's contagious. And when the police academy, the police force, social workers within the structure of the young generation, I think we all can become stronger individuals within ourselves and create a better version of ourselves individually if we can just look at what that looks like, leading by example. And when you're growing up in a home, who is that first example? Many times it's your mom. Your mom is your first coach. Your mom is your first mentor. And maybe it could be your father. Your father is your first coach. Your father is your first leader, your mentor. And so, starting in the home, leading by example, growing up, knowing the difference between right and wrong, and not allowing the difficulty that you have been given or you are involved in the home, if it is a strangled environment, and don't allow that to dictate what your future outcome is going to be. I think each one of us have our own individual platform. Mine is coming off the NFL field as an alumni Super Bowl cheerleader. We didn't get paid like the NFL players do, but there is something that isn't bank that I take very, very much to heart, and that's the network of people that have been around me all of these years. I can pick up my phone and call a player, call a coach. All of the networks of cheerleaders and players and mentors that I've had along the way, and my foundation team, Gateway to a Cure, would not be where it is today if it wasn't for that network that has been so strategic and influenced me throughout the last 4 years developing what I have. And so there's if you have the opportunity to lead by example, use the network that you're creating and not attach a monetary thing to it, a money value to it, I think you're going to be really great. I think you're going to have really great outcome in terms of personal growth. Oh, there you are. Bye, Jen. Have a great rest of your week. God bless. Thank you so much, Marco. Bye-bye.
Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski is a familiar face on the basketball court. Now he's using his platform to call attention to the Black Lives Matter movement in an impassioned way.
Black Lives Matter. Say it. Can't you say it?
This morning, a dynamic call to action from one of the most respected voices in college basketball history.
This is not a political statement. It's a human rights statement.
Duke Blue Devils coach Mike Krzyzewski, better known as Coach K, posting his message to Twitter, viewed more than 3 million times. This after weeks of protests in the name of Black Lives Matter and police reform.
Do we not see the problem, the disease, the plague that has been with our country for 4 centuries?
Reactions now pouring in, even from one of Duke's former players, Jeff Capel.
I'm not surprised by Coach K's message. What he's tried to do is that he's tried to listen. He's tried to learn. He's tried to educate himself.
Capel, the current University of Pittsburgh head coach, an active participant in conversations about racial injustice. Krzyzewski and Capel joining a host of other college coaches who've released statements and pursued action in an effort to raise awareness.
That's where we are right now. To defeat this enemy, which is racism, we need each other.
We as a country have chosen the easier wrong for 4 centuries. It is time to choose the harder right.
Coach